Hello, welcome. I'm going to update the timer quickly. Here we go. Should load. Cool. 2 hours and starting. So today we're going to look at the horror template in Unreal. We're going to replicate that. We're going to create some multiplayer gameplay. We're going to let's have a look. So what does the horror template have? It has a character with sprint and stamina. It has default flashlight that doesn't really do much and it's not very obvious. And it has some doors that move. It doesn't really have much else in there, so I'll take a quick run through that. So here's the template. We've got a stamina bar, runs out, we get a little bit of a build up. We can press sprint again, but it actually doesn't let us sprint. So I would say that's a bit of a strange bug. And then once it gets to the top, we can sprint again. It's got these doors. It's got a couple of nice light effects. It's got some side rooms. That's pretty much it. And then we've got that sprint issue to resolve. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make it multiplayer. We're going to replicate players, add some footstep sounds. We will make sure that the sprint state is working and that that energy event at the end is replicated in some way. Just so that the players basically move at the right speeds across the network. We'll add a crouch state so that we can later on hide from an AI. We'll make that flashlight toggleable, and we might try and make it so that the AI can see the flashlight. We'll replicate a health for the player as well, and we'll add some damage UI and UX. Then we'll make sure that the doors are replicated and that they have sound. We'll create a quick host and join game screen and test connection, which means we'll need to actually set up our config ionize and plugins a little bit further ahead of time. So we'll put that up here. We'll take that from the previous video where we did multiplayer for the FPS template. Then we'll add some loot. They'll appear in random places. When you pick them up, it will be a physics carry. You'll have some cache UI that shows how much that item is worth. We'll have a drop-off point in some sort of hub area. So we may actually do this hub room a little bit sooner. We'll have some two-handed items, although actually every item is going to be physics two-hand carry. And then we'll have a right mouse button to rotate that item, so we can have some long items that you need to sort of orient through areas, and then hit reduces value. From there, once we've got items and we're able to move around and that's all replicated and working, we'll be able to go into some sort of mission flow where you've got to collect those items and you have a goal, and there's a goal on the UI about how much cash you need to gather. And then there'll be a clear point where you have to drop all this stuff and the total for what's in there, and then a button to tally those items up to end the round. Countdown for Jigsaw Trap. Countdown. Oh, right, yeah. I'll die if I don't finish this in time. No, I like to give myself a constraint to keep myself from going overboard. And so we have 2 hours to replicate. 2 hours to create repo, or to create Lethal Company, an extraction-based co-op horror. Yeah, so once we've got the clear drop-off point and a button to tally those items, that'll end the round. So we'll have like end round of some kind. We'll have a basic chase AI, so they'll be, firstly, they'll be attracted to sights and sounds, and secondly, they'll be harder to see when you're crouched, or you'll be harder to see when you're crouched, and you can hide in certain places. So we'll create some places where you can crouch underneath like a table and stuff, and then we'll package and ship it on itch. We may not get it all done in this first 2 hours, but we'll give ourselves 2 hours, we'll see how far we get. So without spending too much time in here, I'll have a sip of coffee. How are you doing, Undead? Are you excited for this stream? Are you excited to see replication happen live? Doom scrolling YouTube for 2 hours. Yeah. Yeah, man, it keeps me motivated, keeps me in the flow state. So first off, let's get some footstep sounds in here, and I will use some asset packs for that. So we'll go library. Let's go down to footstep. We've got a couple. This one here, footstep sound with blueprint, is probably the nicest. what I'll do is actually pull it from another project I've made in the past. So bear with me, I'm on my other screen right now, just jumping through. Replication is the word for multiplayer in Unreal Engine. So when you replicate something, you make sure that all connected players see the same events occurring. And so replication is just the name for multiplayer systems design in Unreal Engine. So I have some content here, and I should have some footstep sounds. Yeah, that'll do. So we'll take this audio folder and we'll throw that into our new template content. Alrighty, I've just loaded up some footstep audio, so let's take a listen to this. We're mostly walking on this sort of tiled floor, so we'll just focus on that for starts. And so we'll look at, what does the concrete sound like? I need to actually... We're listening to sound right now, so we may need to actually turn down our YouTube audio for the music I'm chilling to. Okay, quick. Yeah, we got some sounds. I got some interesting UI change here that says play. I guess it's just to show you that it's still playing. Cool. So we have sound. We do need an actual sound to hold this, so let's just create one. Let's go audio, sound cue. We'll go SC for sound cue, underscore footstep, and then variant. So in this case, it's concrete. And then if we go and grab all of these concrete sounds here, right click and do random, go random multiple waves, and now we have this. We'll also add some modulation to this, so as you walk, it's not always exactly the same pitch. That's cool. So we've got that in there. Happy days on that. Got a nice sound. We want some attenuation settings in here, so we have a sound attenuation. I'm just going to call this ATT underscore footstep. Let's just double check how big that attenuation is. It's got quite a large fall off distance. It's fully audible within 100 units. It's difficult to know if that's working particularly well until we put it in the level. So let's put this over here and just have it be looping. Can't do from there, so we'll do it from here. Should be. I'll tell you what. For testing, we'll stick a little looping node in here. It's all about having clown shoes as you walk around. Do you remember in games where you'd like sneak and the sneak would just be louder than like the regular walking? I think it was Abe's Odyssey did that. It was a good one. That was a good one. You'd sneak and it would be like cool. So I've put that in the scene. It's looping, which means if I hit play, it's right next to me at the moment. I mean, I can hear it from the other side of the map. Maybe we'll just reduce it a small amount. Let's put this back in here. We'll change this attenuation to 2000. We'll go with that. Okay, so we have a footstep sound. We've got this character. One thing that I remember from the other template is that there are some issues with this, with the two characters here, but we'll look at that in a moment when we test two-player. And just to reorient ourselves, the first thing we're looking at these footstep sounds. So let's just get that working first. For this, what we could do is take a look at their animations on this character. So we've got these idles and we've got some walk and jog. We could actually add the sound to the moment the footstep lands, and that would be a little bit clearer. So we'll just start stepping through these and adding sounds to the actual footstep moments. Do have this Lyra context effect, which I guess is when the footstep lands, but context effects. That's cool, but I actually don't know what this does. If I look at the details here, we've got a notified chance and an event, but we can't do much with it. Let's take a look at the anim blueprint and see if there's anything in this graph. It's a first person copy, we don't want that one. We want to take a look at the main 3P meshes animation blueprint here. We've got this unarmed, so we'll take a look at that. Okay, we've got a bunch of stuff going on in here. Very cool. Okay, so we have this Lyra context effects. Context effects? Event anim notify, Lyra context effects. It doesn't come out with any information like the location to play the sound. So I guess for cheapness, what we could do is if the character is valid, we would get the actor location and we would play sound at location. And we'll just use that concrete sound. That'll do for now. We'll see if that works. Survival horror is my jam. Looks like I'm tuning in for the start of a project this time. Yeah. We've just started. I'll give you a quick rundown if you missed it. So the template for the 5.6 just comes with sprint, stamina, a flashlight, and some doors. You can't toggle the flashlight. The sprint has a bit of a bug with it. And generally like no gameplay. So we're going to replicate all the player, the flashlight. We'll add crouch, sprint. We're going to replicate the doors, add a sound to that. Get the host and join screen from the FPS game that we made last week. We'll add some loot so that you can carry that and it has cash for it. We'll have a mission that requires you to collect an amount of cash, and we'll have an enemy that chases and kills you. And then we'll cook and package it up. So right now we're doing the footsteps. We've just started. We've got 2 hours on the clock. We're almost at the 15-minute mark, so it'd be nice to have the footsteps done. Let's have a look. So if we hit play now, we'll get rid of the sound that's in the scene there. That was just testing. That works. Yep, that's all good. And then what I'll do is if the character is crouched, we'll actually play a quieter version. So let's move this and just be like, yeah, footsteps is done. Footsteps done. Cool. Actually, is there a way to like strike through? There is. Cool, footstep sounds done. Sprint state and energy. So we do have a sprint state, and it occurs when we press this sprint key, and then all this stuff is happening in terms of us sprinting, but that's not for me, not a great method. What we can see is we've got some fixed hit going on. Let's see how this works. So when we trigger sprinting, and sprinting is a bool, so when we press and potentially even hold that event, if the sprint meter is more than 0 and we're not recovering, then the sprint meter is going to minus some game time in seconds to reduce the bar, and then it's going to update the horror UI. We actually have a reference directly to that horror UI. We've added that horror UI from our blueprint player character on event possessed. So A, event possessed will only work on a server. B, if it did work, and you know that because of the server only little marker here. So we need to move this UI to the HUD class. B, if this was on an event like begin play, it would actually happen for every connected player. Making marbles. All right, cool. So, and we've got this mapping context issue again in our player. So we'll worry about all this UI stuff in a little bit, but we will note it down that it needs to be sorted out. So we'll call it fix input mapping and UI. We've got to move the UI to the HUD class. Let's get rid of this. We've got to move input mapping to the player controller. That'll do for those quick notes. Okay. Yeah, so we've got a lot of stuff going on here about recovery and all these kinds of things. We've got like some timers going on. What I want to do is something that I do in a lot of my projects. And so for the next 15 minutes, let's just get a value component set up. What I'm going to do is I need a folder to house like my particular parts of this. So let's just make a new folder called footstep content. And we'll go here, we'll just do components. Let's make a new blueprint component, blueprint class, actor component. We'll call this BP underscore value underscore component. So the main thing about a value component that's really nice is we can use it for health, stamina, cash. We can use it for anything. It's just a number, and it will be replicated to the UI. So we're going to have a value. It will be a float. It will be replicated here. And in fact, we'll rep notify this. We'll add a dispatch that's value changed. So when this value is updated, this onRep value will trigger on all clients, and it will call that the value has changed. And what we'll do is we'll send out the value component as a reference. That'll be self. And from there we can get the min, the max, etc. So next, as well as value, we do need max value. This one could also be replicated. And so we could say, well, this would just be max value changed or just value changed. So we'll call it max value changed. In the modern Unreal, we would actually use a model view framework, but we'll do this one for now. Max value changed. We will add, again, the value component to this. In fact, no. We will just use value changed because things like percent and etc. will change anyway. So we'll just use the one that we had. Value changed. Now what we need, we'll start this off with 100 as the value, and we'll add a set value function. One thing that I want to do is I would like to privatize these, but if I do so, you won't be able to edit the defaults. So we'll leave them visible, but we'll set value here. This is going to set the new value, and it will trigger the event that our UI is going to listen to soon. And because it's replicated, this also can only happen on server. And we'll also have a set for the max value, set max value. This can only happen on authority. That's cool. We will also have a concept of whether this value is increasing, let's say regenerating stamina, regenerating health, or you picked up some health and we edited the value. And we're also going to have decreasing, so it can decrease over time at a certain rate. Let's start with a function just called edit value. And so when we edit the health, we want to have a delta for this. It's delta. We'll edit the value by the delta, and as long as that's not equal to the current value, then we'll resume. And what we can do is we could actually convert this into a function called canEditValue. That's nice because we can now extend this class into a new value component, and maybe canEdit value has a different bit of logic, and we could override that in a child component. So can we edit the value? If the value is not equal to the current value, then it's allowed. At which point we'll actually do the operation, delta. We will apply that to our variable here. Again, all of this needs to be on authority. So when we edit the value, can we edit the value? If so, we do the edit. And then we'll do some branches. So firstly, if the value is now equal to 0, in fact, what we could do is put this in the notify here. If the value is equal to 0, then we'll call 0 reached here. And that will allow us to do things on all connections for when 0 is reached. If it's not, and the value is in fact equal to the max value, then we'll call max reached. Now start giving us a generic function that we can use, max reached. It's cool. Let's make sure that we're outputting the value component that called this. So if we right click and refresh these now, we get our value comp property. So we can just drag self into these. Let's make that sure that our variable names are consistent. So this needs to be value comp. We'll jump over to our onRep here. Let's just refresh this. Let's go to our max value, refresh this. I guess also, because the max value can change and it could become 0, what we could do is also, if either of these conditions are true, we also want to, could just reveal this to a function actually as like check value delegates, I guess. Check min max. Let's call it check min max. Okay, so we'll check min max there. And we'll check min max here. And when we edit the value, we can also do one more little helper function that will be good for us. So if the delta was a large delta, we might want to do this actually in this onRep function here. So we'll have a last value. What I want to do is have an event for if the health is increased or decreased when we have value changed here. Now, firstly, we always want to set last value essentially on begin play here, and any time that the value changes. So we'll just make sure that that's all updated. Last value is not replicated, it's a local variable. What we'll do is, if the new value is more than the last value, then on our value changed, we'll actually have a boolean that was just called increased. And so now we know when our health changes whether we took damage or whether we actually got healed, and that will help us do things like play a visual effect on the character or their screen, or play a certain sound. Alright, so let's crack on. Where are we at now? We're at 35, we've got 5 more minutes for this. So that's all of our general setup here. Pretty simple. If we can edit the value because it's different, then we'll edit the value with the delta. If the value is more than the last value, then we'll report that information and we'll update that last value. Now let's go and replace sprinting with that. So let's add a value component 2 here, and we'll just call this value underscore sprint. It starts with 100. We've got to categorize some of these variables actually. So we'll call this value config. This last value will actually be private. We don't need to see that one. And these will be our value events. I'm going to set my save on compile to always, so that's cool. Close down some of these other bits. So we have this value sprint, we have 0 reached, max reached, we've got value changed. We can do things with all of these. So these are now events that will trigger, that we can do things with later. Right now, oh, you'll see here there's an issue. So value config and then value config again. And I'll show why that is. So when you create a named category and then you drag an item into that category, it actually assumes that it has a space in there. So what we'll do is we'll actually just put a space in the default one. We'll come back now. When we look at our value, you can see now they're both in the same category. So that's just a little a little treat of Unreal there, the Unreal way. Okay, cool. So we want to take a look at our sprint UI for starts, and we want to actually bind it directly to our sprint thing. So custom event, bind to sprint value. Let's get the owning form. Set to FP horror. Get the sprint value. And on value changed, we're going to update that sprint bar. So we'll grab the progress bar and we'll set the value, or set the percent of this to a value that comes out of this value component. What we want to have in our functions for our value component is a get value. So we can get the max, the min, we can divide this by the max to get a percent, and we'll return everything out of this function. So we can do things with the min, the max, and then we'll call this last one percent. Not the most clean little function there, but it's good enough. So let's get percent off of here, or get value, I should say. Because this doesn't really do much, I'm actually going to make it pure and const. Now we have our percent here. So anytime that the value changes, we'll update the percent. We'll also want to actually call value changed event here. We'll say that by default it's increased because it's the first time you've ever had health. So you have gained 100 by virtue of spawning. So that's the sprint value setup. We don't need a bar update here. We have an animation that plays. I think this is just when health reaches 0, we're going to play this animation. We're going to start the drain until we're done. So we'll play with that as well. Switch recovery, don't know what that means. Get rid of it. Let's go to our editor preferences and make sure that we can actually see our grid as well. Grid. Make this orange. We'll do break on blueprint exceptions, and we'll do last opened, or startup map will be last opened. So that's just a couple of preferences I like to do every time. We'll bring this over. We've got event construct, bind to sprint. We'll use this same component for our health, and we'll use it for our cache as well. And we'll use it in different ways. For this one, we'll use it as a percent bar. For cache, we'll use it as a number. For health, we'll probably use it as a number. Okay. So there's one more thing we need to add to this value component, and it's the concept of like increasing over time or decreasing over time. And whether it's idle as well, like whether nothing is happening. So that's the delta. So what we could do is edit delta, edit delta, edit passive delta. So there'll be a passive delta. We'll make a variable for that passive delta. Let's make sure that we retain the same kind of naming conventions through here. So always with a spacebar. Passive delta, we'll put this in delta. It's going to be 0 by default. And it can be -1 a second, -5 a second, -10. It could be 1, 10. It could be going up or down. Does that need to be replicated? I don't think it does, personally, because it's just going to affect some things. So let's edit the passive delta. This should only be allowed on the authority again. And in here, what we'll do is by default, our component won't tick. So we could have a load of these and it won't really hit the performance too much because they're not ticking. But if this is not equal to 0, then this component should be ticking. But if it's equal to 0, then it won't be ticking. Which means now we can just shove a function straight onto our tick, which we know only happens when there's a passive delta. We can multiply this by delta seconds. Now we have the starts of a function. If we were to edit the value like so, we can now start gaining and lowering that value over time. So let's jump back in here. We've got our UI. Let's just unhook everything from this sprint event and we'll just start it from scratch. So when we start sprinting, we need to custom event server set sprinting. So we're going to RPC to the server reliably. So reliable, by the way, means if you've got a cosmetic event like a multicast where you want to play some sound or effect, you don't necessarily need to have those be reliable. If they're unreliable, there's a chance that they get delayed or never happen at all. Reliable RPCs go onto a stack and they must go through to the end point. And so when it comes to player state, instead of cosmetic events, player state, you want to have it be reliable, and cosmetic events don't need to be reliable, so it's something to think about when you're replicating. Server set sprinting, we are just going to have a sprinting property. It can be replicated, so we could maybe use that in the animation blueprint. So we're going to set sprinting here to true. So when we start, we set sprinting, server set sprinting to true. And when this is completed, we will set sprinting to false. We get a bunch of issues apparently, because I deleted a bunch of functions. I am literally going to delete all of this. We're just going to do this. We're just going to remake this our own way. Okay, so we start and stop sprinting. And what that is going to do is it will take our sprint value component and it will edit the passive delta. When we're sprinting, let's just say it's -10 a second for now. And when we're done sprinting, what we could do is we could set a timer by event, custom event, regenerate stamina. We could actually rename this to stamina. We could use it for various things. Let's say after 2 seconds, the passive sprint value actually comes back to 10. When this happens, but what we need to make sure that is if we press sprint again, that this timer doesn't elapse and actually trigger, otherwise we'll apply -10 and then we'll apply, let's say, 20 for a fast recovery. So we need to have this stamina regen timer handle as a variable that we can clear anytime that you actually press sprint again. So we would clear and invalidate this handle on the server if you press this button again. So we do all this, we're coming back here to our passive being increased. That should sort us for the most part there. We've got this recovery. Apparently we have some sprint times, but we're gonna basically just get rid of this function. Okay, so let's hit play. Finally. We're at 24 minutes, that took 10 minutes longer. So if I hit the sprint key, you can see it goes down. When I release the sprint key, it doesn't actually do what I want it to do. So we'll also go cancelled here. And so one thing we need to do is actually make the regen 0 as soon as we let go. So I let go, after 2 seconds, it will recover, and then we're done. So another thing that we can do is when our stamina reaches the max value, we do not need any more passive delta. So we'll do this on the authority. So that's cool. It's taking a little while for that sprint to decrease, so I'm just going to change it to 50. And then it regens there. I think one thing that's occurring is, well, a couple of things that are happening with this sprint right now. A reliable explanation, exactly. It's reliable. One thing that's happening with our sprint is we're actually capable of just pressing it and standing still, and our stamina will go down. And so we actually want it to only become true if we're also moving. And so what we'll do is we'll actually have a tick that evaluates sprinting. So evaluate sprint. Here what we'll do is, if this is a local player, put a branch in, locally controlled. We'll get our character movement velocity and we'll check whether it's actually moving and if the sprint key is held. So if the length of this is, say, more than some value like 5, and we are holding that sprint key, I suppose we could also say, and the current value is more than 0. And if that is not equal to sprinting, then we will edit sprinting. So set sprinting, and it will be this value. So if any of these are false, let's say we're not moving, then it should set it to false if it's not already false. If we're not holding the button, or if we have no sprint, then we'll just call cancel sprinting at any time any of those occur. And this just saves us from repeatedly calling this RPC loads of times. We only ever want to call this like very carefully to retain, memory bandwidth. Sorry, on the across the network. We don't want to be sending RPCs often. We want to send them as little as possible. So you would never want an RPC on tick, is basically what I'm saying. Now that we actually have that condition there for evaluating sprint, we actually don't need this max stamina setting the passive to 0, I believe. Actually, yeah, we do still need that. That's all fine. Okay, I'm just checking my notifications. I'm getting a bunch of pings right now. Okie dokie. All right, sweet. So now when I'm stood still and I press the sprint key, nothing should happen. But as soon as I start moving, it will actually go down. And then stop, wait, and recover. So that's neat. So when we need to add some animations back in. So we had this drain animation that's like blinking, and I think it was on repeat. So doof doof doof. Hey, we're being edited basically. And so what we could do is this wants to play often. Sorry, this wants to trigger once and it plays a number of loops at 0, so it just repeats until you tell it to stop. And so we want to start drain animation. Nope. Start sprint drain and stop sprint drain. So we will do this when this value components. We should probably replicate the passive delta, because otherwise we have no way to know if it's idle, positive or negative. So we'll add a rep notify to this, and we'll call this passive delta changed. And now we can bind to that event. Well, again, we'll add the value component with value comp. That into our value events, call it, add self. So this is all a lot of setup, but what it means is that ongoing for the rest of our project, we have like a nicely replicated value component that we can listen to for UI purposes and for gameplay. So we go back to our UI horror here, and we're gonna assign to passive delta changed. Now, if get passive delta, let's say if it's more than 0, it's going down. Actually, if it's, let's have a look at what we want to do here. We want to basically start and stop it on 2 events. I'd like it to flash when it's going down, and then not flash when it's 0. So let's actually just say if it's 0, then we stop, and if it's changing, then we're going to flash. That should give us enough information to say, hey, something's happening with the sprint bar right now. That's cool. Got a little animation that shows us that something's going on with the sprint bar. There's some state changes, and we can do whatever we want with that. Yeah, Nerebar, that's correct, yeah. Okay, so we're good. We're good with that sprint stuff now. The next thing is to actually make our character move speed change. So we want to make sure that this walk speed is replicated, and probably just on rep notify again, so that when anyone joins late, or if you're just sprinting at any time, we've got this walk speed change, and actually it applies directly to setting the walk speed on that character. And so that will happen for everyone. And so because now we're in the realm of replicating things from our character, we should make sure that our character is actually set to replicate, which it is, so that's good. I think my cat's asking to be... Yeah, 2 seconds. Alright, cat's let out. Wow, we've been 45 minutes on a value component, that's wonderful. We are not going to get very far in 2 hours, but we can always do another one tomorrow, so I'm not too worried here. As long as we get it replicated and the character's moving around, and we've got a couple of things off the list, I'm not too sad. We can always crack on another hour or so another time. Hey, Mr. Muko, nice to see you. Welcome to the stream. We are replicating the horror template today. And so I will smash play for you so you can see where we're at. We've got this character. It doesn't have many features, but some of the things that I wanted to do was make sure that as we replicate, we have tools and components that we can use to flesh out the rest of the game, cache UI for lootable items, multiple characters that move around with sprint, crouch, health. There'll be some damage events, there'll be some AI. We've just got the sprint bar behaving as we want, but we're actually not changing our move speed, so we're going to go and do that right now. When we change to sprinting, or not, we play with the value component, but we also, we'll have a little function here, set move speed. And so we'll set our walk speed here like so. This will be another authoritative function, so if anyone else decides to call it, they can't do anything with it. And we'll do a selector off of here. If you're sprinting, we're going to move you at a certain speed. Now that speed, I believe there was actually a sprint animation in the unarmed walk run. And so there's probably a value in here. Oh, it's just 1. Okay, so fair enough. I was hoping for a value to come out of there. Let's check out the animation blueprint and see what values we're getting for running. So running speed here is 600. So oops, we will take that 600 and that will be our sprint speed. If we're sprinting with this, if we're not, I believe the default is like 300. Oh, they've changed it to 250, so just makes it a little bit more tense. Okay, come on, 250 please. Thank you. Okay, now when we hit sprint, we've got our walking, we've got our sprinting, and then we stop sprinting. So that's cool. We can go up slowly, we can sprint again. One thing that I want to check is that, yeah, when I hold the sprint key, it resets the timer, so we'll fix that in a second. Look at the She-Hit template right now. I did a great job. Oh, thanks, man. I didn't comment any of it. feel bad about that. My comments are in video form through the VOD because it's super helpful for everybody. No, I do wish I took the time to just clean it up a little bit, but I am firing on all cylinders, trying to go fast. So something happened there where the value went higher than it should have. So something that we didn't do in our edit value function here was, if it's not equal to, that's fine, but that means it can actually go higher than 100. So I think my sprint stamina actually went to like 200 at one point there. So what I need to do is my can edit value function needs to be improved. You can edit the value if it's not equal to, and I guess what we would do is also clamp it. So if it's not equal, we would actually clamp it here. So let's clamp this value, clamp this axis. We don't want to clamp the axis. We'll clamp the float between 0 and max, and if that value is not equal to our current value, then we're allowed to change. So a little edit there to the can edit function just means that we can't actually go above maximum, because obviously that doesn't make any sense. So sprint, we're no longer sprinting, sprint climbs back up. Reaching max didn't stop the increase, so we're missing something. We have this variable for max reached, and we set the passive to 0, but I don't think that this max reached is actually triggering. Yeah, so max reach is currently not triggering. Let's take a look at why. If we can edit the value, which we can. Oh, and I see what's happening. We need to clamp this as well. So what happened is it never actually hit 100. It hit like 101 or something like that. So we actually need to clamp the output of this value as well. because the delta could have been some floating point number. And now we actually trigger that, so that's good. And now when we press sprint, we actually sprint from 100 rather than like 200, and then we see nothing happening. So that's cool. And it's a long thing. So the next thing that I noticed was if I just hold sprint, it actually stops. It actually stops growing. So let's take a look at why that happens. I press. Yeah, we shouldn't be doing it on the input anymore because we're going to do it from the evaluation of the sprint. Well, look. So if I sprint, stop, and then just wait for it to regen, and then hit the button, and like nothing's going to happen until I actually move. So that's fixed that as well. So that's everything I think to do with the original sprinting solved. So let's go back to our Figma. So we have a sprint state now, and we have some energy that's associated to that, so we'll get rid of that. We wanted to add a crouch state, but before I get too far in, I do actually just want to add 2 players as a listen server and see what happens. So now we're hitting the input mapping context issues. Let's go and fix that. We had to fix this in the previous template as well. We are going to just delete a bunch of stuff. We don't want to use possessed because it's server only. We need a player controller class, so let's go and make sure that we actually have one. We do have this first person player controller, so we'll jump in here. We've got this mouse look system when it comes to a first person controller, so let's just make sure that we're also adding that in our enhanced input here. We get another issue on possessed again in the player. We have some horror inputs, right? So what we need to do is go to our level, world settings, check out GM horror. It's using the first person player controller. Let's create a child blueprint class for that. First person controller horror. Whoa. Horror. And let's put that into our UXIF content. This first person horror controller is going to be the class for this game mode. And in here, we'll have event born possessed changed begin play. Some event on possessed. Call this on pawn possessed. I like to use the on keyword here. And if this is valid, and if this is local, that's what we say it is local player. Then we're going to apply our input mapping context here. In fact, we know this is on our machine now because we're local. So we'll actually just add it like so. Then we've got to solve the UI as well. So we have this UI here. We're adding it to the player screen. Let's not do that. So we're just going to remove everything there. What we need to do is create a HUD for our game mode because we were just adding the UI straight from the player blueprint, which means that every single player in our game is going to add a UI for every other player when they begin play. So let's create a new HUD class, put that in our UXIF content. Let's call it BP HUD horror. In here on begin play, because this is only going to happen on our local player now. Now we'll create the UI for the horror. We'll add it to the screen here. And because we're now bound to the sprint component, we don't actually need to have a dependency between the first person horror character and the UI in order to update the sprint, because the sprint's going to update itself through virtue of like finding the component it wants to listen to. So now we should be away from all the bugs. Firstly, I'm not getting inputs, and the reason for that is in our first person horror controller, we are straight overriding begin play. So we need to ensure that our parent begin play also runs, because that's where, if we go take a look at it, that's where our original mapping contexts are added. So if we're doing an override, we do need to call the parent if we want to. It's optional. So now we've got all this stuff. This is cool. Sprinting not immediately working here, so we'll have to look into why that is. It may just be because this has already happened. So if I get controlled pawn here, and then actually say on pawn possessed, spell that wrong, say on pawn changed. Let's pull this down. This is new pawn here. May have already been the case that we actually had a pawn. So yeah, now we can sprint again. So that's cool. That solves that problem. I'm having this issue with login credentials, so I'm quickly going to go and close this down. GM horror. Yeah, we'll say, oh, actually cancel, save everything, and then we'll close this down. I'm going to jump back to Figma and show you the next step. So what did we just do? We did actually do this. We've solved that. We need to sort out the config INI issues and the plugins. So in 5.6, it's not actually that simple to just press play with two clients anymore. You actually have to set up a few things. So I'm just going to go to my templates, configs, it may be default editor. No. Oh, PyLogins, yeah, you see this here. We need this in our default editor for our new template. So we'll just slam that in there. This sets up a player 1 password test, player 2 password test, player 3. That means that we can actually play now. And then in our default engine, we're going to need some things as well. So we go to config of my previous project. We're just going to grab all the NetDriver definitions, all the client rate information, all the way down to here. And we're going to post that, or paste that into our new horror multiplayer template. And then also in the previous arena shooter project, we had these two plugins. So we'll take those two plugins and we'll pop those in here. New folder, plugins, paste those in. That's sorted. We'll open the horror template. Now we should actually be able to hit play, get two characters walking around. We've solved a few things with the sprint, and then we'll play with the flashlight and crouch state. Although I need to import an animation for a crouch state. Alrighty. So we're cooking on gas. We got two characters on a listen server. Hit play. So there's my other guy. So he's actually looking fine. If I bring these over together, so you can walk backwards, that's all good. Walk left, walk right. It's always a run, which is not ideal. And the run is using those lyre animations again, where strafing is always to the left, which is pretty funny. And then so we can sprint. We don't get any lag because we're actually updating those sprint values at the same time. The flashlight, I believe the flashlight actually moves with our character's head, but on the client side you can see that that actually doesn't happen. So let's make sure that we add that to our list of things to fix for flashlight / pitch. So that's cool. I'm going to go and quickly add a crouch animation so that we can do the next. We did say we wanted a crouch, so we're going to make sure that we do that. Let's go to anim. Should be some free anims. It's like basic or something. Animation. Animation starter pack, maybe. Might be the free one. So see, they've all got guns, so we don't want that one. Get rid of the search word and actually just go by category. Oh god, they've changed it. Okay. Rifle basic, locomotion, mobility basic. I think this is the one that's free for everyone. So we actually can't put that in 5.5. So I'm going to throw it into my UI stream for now. And then I'm going to go and pull that content. So let's go Epic, UXIF, UI stream, content. Is that downloaded? Just wait for this. Okay. And then we should have. Do we reckon it's mobility? In place. And then we got like crouches and turns and stuff, yeah. Okay, cool. So we'll take mobility. The one we want. We'll come back to our horror template here, content, dump that in. Just that particular content hasn't been upgraded yet. Let's go check for a crouch here. Got all these nice turn in places, but we're not necessarily going to use them. We're just going to create a blend space. They do have an aim offset in here for looking left and right whilst crouching, which again is very cool. I don't want to go too in depth with it. Basically just want to have a crouch that respects that we're moving left, right, forward and back. And maybe I could just leave this for another stream because it will take a minute. It's going to take about 15 to 20 minutes. Split jumps, yeah, okay, cool. Well, let's just take a look at our crouches. So got this idle V2, we'll start from there. Then we've got walk left, walk right. We should have walk forward loop here. We've got back right, back left. Yeah, we've got everything that we're going to need. So let's go find the skeleton for this. Right click. Oh. Is it going to work on our actual character? That would be a shame. Variant horror, blueprints, FP horror. Let's just make sure that this animation is actually going to work. Let's go to our animation blueprint. And then come over to our animations. Got this full. Let's check out crouch. So yeah, currently this crouch is actually not going to work for us. So let's take all the crouches that we want. We want the idle. We don't need the turn in places. What's R90 mean? Turn, crouch to walk, stand relaxed, loop, backward loop, backward left, backward right, forward loop, forward left, forward right, left, right, cool. And then we'll retarget these animations. We'll retarget them to whatever the skeleton is. SK_mannequin. Which of course this is called, but it's an mobility one, so come here. What we could potentially do is just, because it's the same skeleton, maybe we don't need to retarget them. Maybe all we need to do, and this is a little bit sketchy, but we're going to try it. We're going to take this, asset actions, replace references for this SK_mannequin skeleton. We're just going to replace it with this SK_mannequin skeleton, I think. Is that a good idea? Or is it Manny? That's Quinn. Yeah, so this is a bad idea. Okay, so yeah, let's actually do what I was doing the first time. We will actually retarget these. Sometimes you can just straight up switch the skeleton that way, but anyway, so let's retarget these. Let's go to SK_mannequin. And it is the one. Yes, it's going to be Quinn. I think. Oh, so I need to actually type. I need to select those again. Idle. We'll take idle v2. We got. Yeah, we actually want the underscore IPC ones. Walk left, right, front, right. Back, left, back, right. We'll export those. Now into our UX of content, we'll make a new folder, animations, and we'll replace mob1 underscore with just like Quinn underscore. Export that. Now, when I look in here, I do actually have the crouches. We've got the different movements, so that's cool. Obviously, you could do this with like your own character as well. So next up, I want to find this skeleton. I want to create a full blend space. So it's BS crouch move. Put that into our animation folder here. And we'll start filling this up. So let's go and get our crouch. We've got our, let's make sure we actually set up our axes as well. So horizontal, left, right, we've got right movement, and then we've got forward movement. That's cool. And then for the number of axes, we're going to go -1 to 1. -1 to 1. We've got a couple of things in here. So holding the shift key snaps it. So we've got, that's backwards actually. Backwards, idle. We did backwards, back left, right, forward, forward left, forward right, left, and right. And so from here now, if I go and hold the control key, I can actually see how this looks. So this is how it will look to other people when I'm doing this, ideally, in a moment. I'm also going to change the smoothing time to just like 0.5 seconds so it doesn't just snap when I'm doing that. Now then, to actually implement crouch, there is a handy crouch call in here. So there's crouch and there's uncrouch. This is already replicated by Unreal by default. And because we're adding some inputs, I'll actually jump over to the variant horror and I'll just shove it in here. So we'll go IA crouch. IA mapping context. Let's add crouch, and that's going to be on control key. Then we just need to decide whether it's toggle or not. Whether it's like you tap it and now you're crouched as long, and then you have to press it to release. I think that's probably best. So in here, what we can do is just crouching, and we can just on the nav movement component, see if there's another. It's either an interface or not. Clicking all the projects top right would have allowed adding it directly. Clicking all projects top right would have allowed. I didn't know that. Let's have a look. So I want to add this mobility pack. Show all projects. Yeah, but it doesn't actually let you do it because it's still incompatible. So like you can't click that button. Don't add. Okay, so we're going to actually cache this crouch button here. Oh god, something broke. Let's call this crouching. We've got a movement state machine here, locomotion. So we've got some conditions. Go into locomotion, use cached locomotion. locomotion again, idle, walk, run. So here what we want to do is select by ball. We'll have same variables. But instead, this particular one is going to be a BS crouch move, and this variable will be crouching. So let's see if everything works here. If I go in and do IA crouch, when this has started, we will flip-flop between these two variables. So first we'll go here, and then we'll go here. But I am crouching. And then when I stand still, I just like stand up because I'm not moving anymore. So our ground speed, what is that? Vector length divided by running speed. So we are going to need to look at our crouch speed. And in fact, what we could do... Message here. Okay, so taking a look into this, I want to actually maybe change a little bit of this locomotion state. We've got an idle in here, but we have a blend space, and this blend space has an idle in it. So why would we have a an idle to... I guess it's so that you can maybe play an animation for like stopping, but we're actually just gonna go straight in here to walk run because it doesn't really matter. And then I've got these the wrong way around. So if you are crouching, it's this one, otherwise it's this one. So that's cleaned up a little bit. The crouching never seems to change. I think this is replicated. I'm sure this was always replicated. Let's check character movement. Yeah, can crouch, so you actually have to tick this for this to be able to happen at all. So that's still not doing exactly what I want it to do. Let's check event crouch. An F9. Let's print this out. So we do get a stat. Let's take a look at our other crouch variables. So we're moving at 300 units. We should probably move at like 200. Crouch half height is 40. Let's make sure our capsule is visible for this. Quick test. So it's not hidden in game. Let's just go one player and just make sure that it's actually working. So we've got our capsule. We press control. Oh, go in here. Yeah, you can see our capsule is lower now. In our ABP, this is on initialize, so that was dumb. Let's add that here. So yeah, checking if we're crouching on begin play is not ideal. Yeah, crouching. Just move this, wrap this up, footstep event. Cool. We're not getting any move forward coming out of this. Obviously we can't sprint while we're crouching, so we need to disable that. We are getting left-right movement, which is nice. We are not... Like, the capsule size is changing, but our character position is not changing. I'm curious about why that is. Could be something in our anim graph. There's a control rig here about IKs, about falling. What if I just got rid of that? Nope. The one thing I'm going to do to test to see what's going on here is move this first person camera back. Crouch. Yeah, so that is absolutely horrific. I mean, that is that is essentially a good idea for the enemy for this game, because it is horror. Let's go this window, crouch, F8. So yeah, if this was walking at me, I'd be concerned. Fine. Is it because I'm doing it to the first person or third person, or not one or the other? Let's have a look. So we've got a first person mesh. Let's just make sure owner only see. Owner no see, cool. Animation blueprint is an FP copy. I believe it copies the pose from, and then it does a control rig again. Is it that control rig thing that's like messing this up? Yeah, cool, right. So now we just need to fix up the walking forward movement. So yeah, I don't know what those control rig things do, and I don't necessarily need or want them. Yeah, so ground speed, if I set ground speed right now to 1, he does actually move. And the reason it's not coming out as 1 when I'm moving forward is because it's checking against run speed. So if I move everything down, oops, if I move everything down 1, actually just move everything. Put this at the top, then I can check against this condition here. Select, float, and essentially this down. If we're crouching, then we should be checking against 200. Oops, 200. And if not, we should be checking against this. You could variable this up, you know, in a proper project, but I'm gonna waste my time right now. Cool. Okay, so we got a crouch. It's a little bit lower than our character's head, but that's fine. Let's put our first person camera back where it should be. We can actually see our hands and stuff now, so I think I need to move this back a little. There's our hands. While we're crouching, we can see that too. Okay, that's cool. So let's add our second player back in, get rid of our capsule. Check that all of this crouch stuff is working over the network. Oh, right, yeah. I need to do this in 2 separate windows. New editor window here. So that's all good. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily work great with the blend space, but it's okay. The next thing is we can't, if we hit sprint, we should come out of crouch, because we are attempting, as a player, we're attempting to run away because we're attempting to sprint. So let's make sure that if the sprinting has become true here, we will uncrouch that player. then we can sprint, and then we can't sprint. And now the problem comes where this flip-flop doesn't work anymore because we're changing crouching from other places. So if we are crouched, uncrouched. If we're not crouched, crouched. We'll put that in here. So the flip-flop basically broke because we uncrouched from somewhere else, and that flip-flop was still in the state of being crouched. So when I press Control, nothing actually happened. So sneaking, I'm running, I'm sneaking. Okay, so we're there. Some real weird things going on with the characters' materials that I am not going to worry about too much right now. So we've got the crouch state in, so that's cool. Let's do a really simple edit to the flashlight. So firstly, when I look down on my local player, the flashlight is down there, and then the flashlight is up top. We can see that is because it's attached to the first-person camera. However, that first-person camera is not a replicated component over to other clients. Now, we could experiment with just replicating it to speed a few things up. But I doubt that this is a great idea. I've never done that on another project before. What I'd kind of like to do is add it to the head of the mesh, and then when the player looks down, his head actually looks up and down on other players' machines. So let's stick the spotlight onto the mesh, attach it to the head. Take a look at that. Reset all the variables here. There's a real-time button. Well, there used to be a real-time button, so maybe it's still in here somewhere. Real-time viewport, yeah, so we'll turn that off. Now that that's attached to our head, when we look up and down, it's actually not going to work on here. So it's not following us now at all. But what we'll do is we'll go into the unarmed here and we'll add a new event. I like to put my things into functions, to be honest, so it makes things a little bit easier. So head rotation. We'll set head rotation, it could be. And then we'll get a variable here for pitch. Get base aim rotation, or we'll get character rather. Base aim rotation. And it's roll pitch yaw, so we'll put the pitch in here. We might need to map this value in some way. We close all of our other tabs and go to our event graph, go to our anim graph here. What I'm going to do is transform a bone. We're going to modify the translation. We're not going to worry about rotation. Oh, sorry. We are going to edit that. We're not going to edit the translation, and we're not going to edit the scale. So we'll get rid of both of those. We'll plug a rotation value into here. So this is just head rotation. We'll plug this in here. And this is giving a warning about bone to modify, so we want to do like neck. We'll do 0, 1, and we'll hopefully have that. So this wants to add to existing, I think. And so if we play with the pitch of this and say 40, it actually rolls it. So that's not good. Go 40 and then negative 40 here. Okay, so it's the roll axis that we need to edit from our function that we just made. So we'll get rid of that variable there. We'll do we'll edit head rotation, and we'll just map range clamped from whatever is coming in to get 40 to 40, let's say. I'm going to need to print the value of this view controller pitch because I don't know what variables it's coming from. And we're not calling the function, so that's a common mistake. Set head rotation, call that. So we're going from 60 to oh wow, we're actually able to see inside our character now, so we might need to move our camera forward a bit. But we're sort of looking to a negative 60 to 60 range, so let's try that. And then in our BP horror, we've got this camera that we need to move forward just a little bit. So we'll turn off movement snap and we'll just, we'll move the camera just forward a smidge. And a little bit more. What am I looking at here? Weird. Maybe that's something to do with the control rig stuff that I saw earlier. I think that's the bottom of my face. Yeah, it literally is. The chin of this character. Lovely. Okay, so where's the flashlight? It's still dead center right now. We can look in here to double check what this is coming out as. It's still not actually being hit. Character is not valid. That's interesting. Oh right, yeah, because we're not in here. Okay. This is coming out as 12. Can I wash this? Yeah, so that's 12. Let's look all the way up. Okay, now it's not. Stop watching this value. Watch this value. No? Okay. And I watch that value from here. The roll is 40. Oh, and you can see here actually, and of course it's the wrong direction. So let's go 40 to minus 40 here. Okay, so it looks like the flashlight is down on the ground and up in the air, kind of. Easiest way to see this working is now to just throw 2 players back into the mix. Walk this guy forward. Right, so something interesting going on there. Let's print this out. Pitch. We'll print it with a key of the character's name. "31 minutes left on this stream. We're not going to get to enemies and loot this time. We'll just like set up a nice baseline character for ourselves." So we get this. Of course, clients and server are behaving a little bit differently. Oh, I didn't mean to cancel it. Oops. Negative 70, 80. Okay. Isn't that wild? It's like 360 here and then not here. And then on the other client, it's like a completely different. So let's just do attempt to do this. And now it's 360 to, yeah, 0, then 360. Okay. And then for this guy should be similar. Yeah. Okay. Of course, the axes are wrong, or the rangings are wrong here now. So what I can do though is 360 below, 0 plus up. If I take 360 from the whole calculation, I bring it back into a range. When I look straight forward, it's negative 360. As soon as I look down, it's going to be 360 again. Such a pain in the butt. Fine, let's just do this like a real dodge way. So if it's more than 180, let's do two different map ranges. If it's more than 180, we know that we're in a range of like 360 to 360 here. And we'll go, I believe it's going to be 0 to 40, and then if we're not more than 180, we're going from a range that is more like 0 to, if I've chosen 90, from here we're going this way. Working. It's back to front on the 360 side here. Okay, so that took a minute, but now we have this like nice replicated head rotation thing that works when you're crouched and not crouched, and it's over the network. So we have that done, and then I'm going to change it completely anyway because I'm going to add an actual flashlight at some point. But that was a fun little experiment in sorting that particular bit out. So I think we also wanted to like turn it on and off as a feature. So if we jump over to our event graph, take a look at our IA crouch, save that, actually just Control-Shift-S, it's nice, IA flashlight. And in our horror, we'll add flashlight here. Do that on F. We're going to do that on F. We'll do it on left mouse button. No, we'll do it on F. All interactions will be done through the left mouse button, I guess, for this game, rather than like the F key, or it could be the E key. But either way, F is going to be for our flashlight. Over here, we've got IA flashlight. We are again going to create a variable for this. I do usually like to put this in the component, like I'd extend a spotlight, or I'd create an actor that's a flashlight, and I'd put all the replicated variables like in the houses of their actors. But for speed, I'm just going to add it directly to the character for now. So we have a flashlight on, and because this flashlight is in this character, we'll toggle the visibility of this to whether the flashlight is on. If the flashlight's on, it's visible. It is on by default. And then over on this action here, we need the custom server side RPC. So server set flashlight. Again, that will be running on the server. It will be reliable in this case. We're going to set the flashlight variable like so. And when we click this, we just want to know if the flashlight is on. Server set flashlight to false. If it is not on, set the flashlight to true. Oh, it actually retained the left mouse button. There we go. So we probably want a sound on this. So what we can do is jump over to our flashlight on rep, pull off a cosmetic events node. This is only really important for dedicated servers. It just means that anything that happens beyond here is only going to happen on clients with an actual monitor. But here what we can do is we can ask if, well, we can just play a sound. Play sound at location. We'll play at the location, get the location. And this will just be like a flashlight on off sound. I'm going to go and find a sound for that from another library. In fact, I've just realized I've imported footstep sounds to this. I'm not going to be able to share this with those footstep sounds because it's a library that I'm not allowed to share. So after the stream, I'll remove any non-creative, public creative stuff. So I will actually go to freesound.org to get a flashlight sound. We'll go Creative Commons. Yeah, so there's loads of nice ones in here. But I will need Audacity in order to cut these up. Download the Audacity installer, download the 64-bit installer. Okay. So we now are editing sounds for the flashlight, so we'll just add some sounds to that. We'll need Audacity for the door sounds and stuff as well. Okay. We've got this. We're going to open a sound that I just downloaded from freesound.org. It's this little flashlight sound. I mute my music. Might be able to hear it. Yeah, it's cool. Okay. So what I need to do is export these. So export audio. How would you like to export? I would like to export it to my computer, please. Sure, we'll take stereo. Current selection. We're going to export it to. Let's go browse for this. We'll go working files if we can. And we'll go to, actually we'll go UXIF and we'll go working. We'll go, I've forgotten everything. Okay, here, survival horror. We'll just go source. go A underscore flashlight toggle flashlight switch, I guess you would call it. Then I'll just export each of those. Should really tell it to not show that again. Survival source export. What? I didn't get to pick a name that time. Come again. Yep, that time it just exported it. File, export, don't show again, computer. Ah, right, here it is. So that's number 2. Control Shift E. Oops. Oops. Oh, that'll do. Right. We'll import those. Let's go to our UXF content. We've got some components. Let's go create a folder called audio. Flashlight. We will just drag and drop those sounds in. We'll then create a audio sound cue. We'll call it SC underscore flashlight snip. Let's make sure we have attenuation on this. Let's duplicate the footstep attenuation, put it into our audio folder. We'll just call this close. Use that in here. Grab our flashlight sounds. Rand, multiple wavs. We'll add a modulator to this. Plug that in. Not very loud, so I'm just going to actually increase the volume to 1.2 to 1.3. That's cool. We'll shove that now in here. So it will be SC flashlight. So that'll play from our character and should be good. Very cool. God, you're glowing. You're a glowy. You're not going to do very good at hiding in the dark with that massive glowing blue Unreal Engine logo on your chest. It's not going to do you any favors. We'll have to change the characters at some point, I reckon. So we've got 16 minutes left, and we've almost finished this part. So at least let's call this an episode, and then we'll look at the others as episodes in the future. So tomorrow, starting 9 or 10 o'clock again, I'll do another stream, and we'll jump onto the doors, the menus, some objective-based loot stuff, and we'll get a second episode going for this, setting up a horror template, repos, Lethal Company style game. Right now, let's do the health replication. So let's give ourselves a new component in our character. So we've got FP horror. We've got this nice value component. We can make one now called health. Save that. We'll go to our horror UI. And for this one, what I want to do is actually do it as a text segment. So we'll grab a horizontal box. We'll stick that in our top left of our overlay. Yeah. And we'll call this padding is just like 50. And we'll start adding some text values to this. So this will be TB health current. TB underscore health max. And we'll go TB health divider. And so typically what we'll have is some number out of some larger number. And just here we'll have a little slash in between. That'll just be a simple way of doing that. 5, 5. Okay, so I want these to be colored, let's say, a nice color when we are healthy, and then it will flash red when it's bad times. In order to do that, we want to be able to at least return back to this color. That's okay though. Health damage event, I guess, or anim we'll call it. Health damage. Why would I say health damage? Damage is implicit of health. Okay, so we'll animate this and we will flash it red. That in there. Now if we play this on loop, oh, sorry, if we play this on loop, yeah, you took some damage, man. Okay, and if it was to just play once, it would just flash. Maybe we should at least flash twice. And maybe a little bit faster as well. So let's bring all of this down. And again. Cool. You're gonna spot that even? Yeah, maybe. Okay, so that's when damage happens. Let's make sure that that plays. We've got a value changed, and if this is false, it hasn't increased, it has decreased, then we would play animation and we would play our damage anim. We'll just play it one time. And now we just need something to actually apply that damage to us as a test. So we'll jump into UXIF content. Let's create a new folder for blueprints. Make a blueprint actor. BP damage test. And so this will just be a trigger or a box collision in this case. It will only overlap with our pawns. So we'll go custom, generates overlap events, doesn't trigger on anything except for pawn. And if we right click this, add an event for component begin overlap, we could cast it to our horror play. And if that happened, we could apply damage. And we could say that the base amount of damage that gets applied is just like, just say 10. Damage causer is self. Damage class is default. And so that'll just damage us. Now our applying that damage is actually not listened to by our health here. So what I actually need to do is I will delete this. I will find this in the content browser. I'm going to create a child blueprint class called BP value underscore health. And this one's actually going to listen to damage events. So on begin play, let's get our owner. How long have I got here on stream? 10 minutes, right. And so we would cast this to a character. Or actually, we would just assign damage. Assign take any damage. Yeah, so we'll start with this. And so if any damage occurs, we will edit value on ourself by the amount of damage multiplied by -1. That just tells it to be a negative impact on our health. And so this just sets up the concept of a health component. So we've just modified our value component into a health component in an extension. We have that there. Let's double check in our UI horror. What we need to do is also bind up to, so this is binding to the sprint value. We need to create something similar. So then bind to health value. So we do owning player FP horror. Get health. Sign changed. I've just realized as well I've put this on the wrong place. So that comes down here. Yeah, so when the health, so we'll call this health changed. On health changed. Clean. Rename the one up here as well to maintain consistency on stamina changed. We will get the value here. We've got two text blocks that we need to expose. So we click on this little is variable. And now we can edit this. Health max and current. Set text. We'll take this value and we'll go to text with this. And actually, we want to make sure that we can get rid of any fractional digits in here. Do that. Take the max value as well, plug that into our max. Update both of these text labels in our UI anytime that the health changes. And then if it was a negative health impact, we'll actually animate that. In our blueprints, we've got our little damage test volume. Let's make that big enough to see and make sure that we can actually see it by telling this box to not be hidden in game. And just in case, I'm just going to call this damage box. And one thing I'm going to do as well is just turn the tick off on everything in the event that someone actually uses this in the game. Someone, being me, doesn't need to tick, so we'll keep that nice and cheap. So currently I'm 49 of 100 on the health there. One thing that I forgot to do, because when you do an animation, it actually changes the default color, is actually bring this back to the default color. And I also didn't change this, so health changed. Was it an increase? Yes. And I also didn't actually bind to it. So again, forgetting to call the functions that we write. Okay, so we've got 100 health here. Get the little flash. I need to get rid of those debugs in the ABP unarmed. Get rid of this. Alrighty, so we've got 6 minutes left. Let's walk into this. So not happening on client there. Let's just check in here. We actually only want this to happen on the authority. So that's fine there. Let's go take a look at our health value, make sure that the component is, so this component isn't actually replicated. So that's a big one. This component should definitely replicate. Let's go check out this guy to make sure that that change is transferred over. Yeah. Alrighty. So now I can sprint. All good. Go take some damage. It's happening independently on the two clients. They can each take their own damage sets. And then we could obviously kill them and things like that later on. Another thing that I want to do is make the screen just like do a red overlay when you take that damage. And maybe even animate that number to just shake a little bit. So let's modify the animation on this damage anim. And we will grab the transform, we'll actually just key all three of these. So we'll just key the transform. I said key the transform, please. Okay, it doesn't seem to be doing anything. How about if I key the transform here? Awesome. I'm just going to wibble. I'm just going to wibble it. I'm just going to give it a wibble. Let's do it. So angle this way a little bit. We'll go all the way back the other way a little bit. And then we will end it back at default. And we'll do some scaling as well. For the scale, you just want to really grab attention to this when this event occurs. Ow, ow, ow. Cool, so that's that. I also want to do like a red overlay across the whole screen. And there's a whole bunch of ways you can do this with the post-process cameras and stuff, but a really simple way of doing it is to just use something like Photoshop or a straight up material and just apply like a vignette to the whole screen. Let's try it with a quick material. So I'll come in here, UXIF, we'll just make a new folder UI. I'm going to make a quick material, so MUI damage. Make sure that this is in the UI domain and translucent. We'll get a radial gradient. Some UVs here. Should be pretty standard stuff. We'll just say 10, 10. These two parameters. The radius, speed density. We might then multiply this by a texture that's like a noise texture. Take that. We'll multiply this by noise strength. We'll just say like 3. And then we're going to take a color, which of course is going to be red. We're going to then, for our opacity, we are going to use all of this for our opacity, and then it's just our color. I can't actually, here we go, so 100? 1? Or is it 0.5? Ah, here we go. 10. Right, this needs to be 1 minus. We actually want this to be on the outside. So that's our kind of gap there. We actually want to add these together because I want, whoa. Oh, yeah. Okay, so actually we just want this to go in here. We have this. No, we do want to multiply these together. And then I want to add this again. Can I do it? Something like that. Density, I'm just going to lower it. We'll go 5. 7. Okay, so that's going to be our sort of like edge of screen, but also hits us right in the face kind of effect. I do want to sort of clamp the min-max to something. So we'll always get like a red glow somewhere. Oh, sorry, min. So max is 1, min is like 0.2. 0.1. Okay, so we get a nice like hit, and we'll shove that into our UI horror. So see how this guy is again. He needs his transform reset here. There we go. we'll add an image to this, and we are now out of time. So this will be the last few seconds of this, just throwing a instance of this material into our UI. And then making sure that this is render opacity 0 by default. And in our damage event, we'll actually animate that opacity to just hit real hard, stay on screen for a second, and then fade away. Let's see how that feels. It's not strong enough. It needs to be like really strong, way stronger than that. So let's go 0.1. Sorry, I'm not actually playing the game here. There we go. But one of the things is it bleeds in too slowly, which gives it this effect of like, it's not that important and it's not that punchy. So what we can do to fix that, firstly, let's bring this up to 0.2. So that gets a lot stronger, maybe even 0.3. We'll go back into our UI animation, and the image opacity raises really slowly, so it needs to come on. Bam. Hopefully that saves and works at runtime. It didn't like that, so let's just start again. Blammo. What I would also do is maybe randomize some of this. Ow. So with a sound, bam, you would not be very happy. Also, I need to do something with the actual death. So you would actually fall down, maybe be revivable by your friends. We could take the spectate camera from the multiplayer FPS that we did, where you eject and you look through the camera at your body for a bit until a friend comes up and maybe revives you. So we could do that another time. I'll write that down on the ideas here. So let's just say death. We should ragdoll wrapped, because we don't want that to break. Maybe we don't need to ragdoll. Probably a bad idea. So we'll just say we need a DBNO, we need a spectate cam, we need an interact system, and from that we need a revive mechanic. So we will do that next time. We have managed to do the first ticket on our list. So I was not able to make a replicated first-person horror game in 2 hours, but I could make it in several sets of 2 hours. And so we will carry on with that. Really what this is practice of as well is just finding out how much is really involved in replicating a game, and how much is involved in really scoping down for things like games jams. Because if we wanted to make a game in, say, 2 days, we would want to know that this is how involved it gets when you're trying to do something that's co-op, and which things you would cut corners on, how fast you can do certain parts. Like once you've got your value components set up, it's fairly easy to start setting up different conditions and events, and that helps us like for the rest of the, say, games jam. But yeah, so that was 2 hours. I'll come back. We'll try and make a game in less than 8 hours. I think it would take at least 4 more streams based on the cadence of that stream. So we could do the doors, the menus, and maybe the loot in the next one, and then we'll do the mission flow, the chase AI, and the DBNO stuff in another like 2 hour stream. So maybe 6 hours. And so yeah, I'll be back tomorrow to do that one. And thanks for jumping in, anyone who is around. It's nice to see you. Let me know any questions in the comments, or hit like and subscribe to support the channel. I've also linked my socials in the bio link, so you can take a look at what I built, which is something called Loki Game Dev. and would appreciate to keep in touch. Cheers. Have a good one.